listening to the Cricket Podcast.
I think it was a disgraceful performance, and I think it should never be permitted to happen again.
That is very good.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Cricket Podcast's first ever attempt at presenting something live. I don't know who that is echoing in the background, but someone is.
I saw it.
What a smooth start that was. Today we'll be making our predictions for the 2021 IPL. We'll be diving into a bank of questions we've received on Twitter, and then we'll be responding to whatever is going on in the live chat. Probably loads of abuse if it's anything like the pre-stream comments that we saw. I'm Jack Hope, and today I'm joined by Ross Legg. How are you doing, Ross Legg?
Could not be better. Thanks for organising the live stream. This can only go well.
And Max Rowe Brown. How are you doing, Max Rowe Brown?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Looking forward to the IPL getting underway, and also the county championship that started today as well. So the cricket's back, cricket's on.
Yeah, it is. And finally is Dan Weston, our favourite cricket analyst. How are you doing, Dan?
Well, I was better this morning before Leicestershire started playing Hampshire in the aforementioned county championship, but yeah, all good.
Good.
Yeah, well, sorry you're doing just as well. So,
Ross, before we get into our predictions, we're going to kick off with the predictions. Would you like to give our listeners, viewers, people watching live, a few messages?
Yep, you should like and subscribe to our videos and follow us at the Cricket Pod on Twitter and Instagram. And Gurleen Singh. Saying Spurs suck doesn't affect me. Honestly, water off a duck's back. I know we suck. It's okay.
Great.
It's kind of like being an RCB fan, being a Spurs fan. So you've got to get used to it.
no, don't RCB still expect to win things?
Max, we're going to kick off with predictions. I think you've volunteered to host this mini segment of the show before we get into the listener interaction. Over to you.
Yeah. Yes, as you said, I think it's the best way to start this off is to start strong and put our necks on the line with some predictions. So I thought we could ease into that by predicting who's going to win the IPL. Something nice and important. So do we have four people here who are going to say Mumbai Indians are going to win, or can we start with someone who's going to present a convincing argument that actually one of the other seven who are actually involved in this tournament might have something to say about it?
Who would like to go first? I'm wrestling with the live chat, which has apparently gone wrong, so I'm just going to do some technical stuff before I volunteer my prediction.
All right, we'll throw it over to you, Ross, then. What do we reckon? Mumbai or is someone else going to...
I think Mumbai are definitely the team to beat. They are so strong, and I think, Max, on one of the preview shows, you said it's only been 6 months since the last tournament, so it's not like they've got a year for things to go wrong. People are actually in a bit of form, and last year, I think nearly every single one of their batsmen was in a purple patch of form. So there is that bit where how long can that last for? Actually, for 6 months and the amount of cricket they play, it could well be okay. I think in terms of the rest of the field this year, I think other than Rajasthan Royals, actually all of the teams have improved. And I think there is a piece there where it's going to be really interesting to see who actually makes those playoffs.
Yeah, very much one for the Mumbai Indians camp then. Dan, do we have anything different from you, or are we 2 for 2 on this?
Yeah, we're 2 for 2. I reckon that they win the tournament 5 times out of 10. So overwhelming favourites win. That's obviously massive in an 8-team comp. So yeah, they're the team to beat, no doubt about that.
Yeah, and Jack, have you fixed the live chat, and secondly?
I have fixed the live chat. I have fixed the live chat. Slow mode is now on, so nobody can spam Ross with Spurs suck over and over again. Apart from us.
That's the kind of thing that happens, isn't it, when you do these live events? People can do that.
It's on 30 seconds to give everyone a chance to contribute and to give us a chance to read questions and stuff. If that's not good, I guess we'll change it again. My predictions, well, Mumbai are obviously the favourites for all the reasons that Ross and Dan just mentioned. And, you know, it is frankly hard to build a case for any particular team to have a realistic chance of overcoming them. However, T20, as we've discussed, it's like one of our favourite topics on this podcast. It's a high variance sport, isn't it? And really bad teams can beat really good ones. See, for example, Rajasthan Royals' recent record v Mumbai Indians. I think they've won 5 of the last 6 meetings between the two sides. Now, Rajasthan Royals are definitely not a better cricket team than Mumbai. But, you get a little bit of luck on the day. Ben Stokes goes ballistic. And, it's game over, isn't it? So, I think there is the possibility that one of the other playoff contenders could overturn Mumbai in one or two of those playoff matches. I think Sunrisers Hyderabad have got the bowling to do it. I think Royal Challengers Bangalore have got the star power to do it. And I actually think, my other playoff, the other team I think will make the playoffs, Punjab Kings, I think they're all round, maybe equipped to kind of sometimes go toe to toe with Mumbai. That's a really long way of saying it's 3 for 3. Mumbai Indians are going to win the IPL, Max.
Very good. But you did.
That's it. Podcast done.
Yep. See you later. See you next time. You did touch on something there, though, which I was sort of, hoping to move towards after everybody roundly said, and obviously for what it's worth, I also think Mumbai Indians will probably win the IPL because that's, the evidence is stacked in their favour. But as you have brought up, Jack, it's possible that if you can get to the final, something could happen. You don't have to play Mumbai Indians to play Mumbai Indians in the final, assuming they win the group and win the first eliminator. So who could that team be? Jack, you've suggested a few names, but Ross, I'll come to you. Who do you think could be the surprise or the kryptonite to Mumbai Indians in the final? Is it if Rajasthan Royals make it? Are they favourites?
Max, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but genuinely, I think Sunrisers Hyderabad, after all the abuse that I've given you last season, I think there is just a bit there over the season that could well be a bit where they have the opportunity to do. It's just how long they can go into the tournament. Them playing at Chennai is a huge benefit with the bowling lineup that I think they've got. And actually, if they can record kind of 3 wins straight off the bat, immediately they put themselves in a great position. As you want, Dan, is it about 8 wins you want to qualify for the for the playoffs? Usually.
Sometimes you can probably wing it with 7 and a decent net run rate, but yeah, 8's pretty safe.
Right, cool. So Sunrisers for you, Dan. Anything else that you have to add?
Yeah, definitely. I'm actually agreeing with Jack here, and I think that Punjab Kings, if they structure up well, could be a surprise package. They've got match winners on their day. They've got Chris Gale, they've got Nicholas Puran. Last year, their bowling numbers were terrible, but then they've also invested a lot of money in Jai Richardson, who can hopefully plug that gap. Like to see Ish and Perel get some game time as well with the local bowlers. They're probably lacking a elite proven leg spinner. Hopefully Bishnoi can step up and do that for them. It's an interesting one with Punjab Kings though, because if they pick the 11 that I think that they should pick, or sort of the 12, 13 core players that I think they should pick, they could go really well. But they could also pick really like guys like Henriquez and Chris Jordan and people like that and go really badly. So it's all about their strategy really. And it's certainly difficult to say confidently that they're going to get to the final or really challenge them by. But I think if they strategize well, they probably could.
Nice.
Yeah, Max, I think I tipped it a little bit, didn't I, when I said Punjab Kings as the other team that could beat Mumbai if they make the playoffs, or the other team that I thought would make the playoffs. I really rate Punjab Kings. I think they're the dark horse, but I think they're only the dark horse because they're called Punjab Kings. If you looked at these teams on paper, I think you'd probably rank them reasonably high in the IPL, or in of the 8 teams in the IPL. So yeah, very much a fan of Punjab Kings.
It's a new name though, Jack, isn't it? It's a new name. They've shed the moniker of Kings 11, and no longer will they be perennial losers. And now Punjab Kings will be bringing on a new era of T20 cricket, I think.
look what happened to Delhi Capitals when they changed their names from Capitals to Daredevils. Rubbish as the Daredevils, and now they're basically unbeatable as the Capitals and made the playoffs 2-2, runners-up last year. Ross, we have a super chat. You're Mr. Super Chat. Would you like to read it out? And also, everyone else, you should also do the super chat.
Yeah, so we've got one from Bro Barber, who has got Barack Obama as his picture with a bowl cut, which I can respect so much. I mean, if it's him and it looks like that, then excellent. Great haircut from your mum there, mate. He says, thank you so much, guys, for having such an amazing, informative podcast of cricket. What do you guys think is the biggest weakness of RCB? He thinks it's the death bowling and middle overs batting. Max, as you've asked all the questions so far, I'm going to come to you on this one. What do you think here, mate?
Yeah, so I think spot on with the death bowling, having brought in a replacement for Chris Morris, who isn't really anything like Chris Morris, although he is a fast bowler who can hit the ball down the order. As I think we've mentioned on previous shows, he doesn't fit like the same kind of profile in where he will bowl those overs, and on top of that, he is just not actually proven as a quantity in T20 cricket, and obviously we haven't seen him in the IPL, and his recent form in that series against Australia was not great, to say the least. So that is definitely a concern. I think. You mentioned star power with RCB just then, Jack, on them, and I think that is a thing that will be really interesting. If those players go well, then they do have the middle order batting, and then also there is a question in there as whether one of the other Indian players in the squad will step up. But I think for me, what their main weakness is just the depth of their squad, because they're really thin in terms of backups. So like they're like top 10, 11 players are really good and could challenge any team on their day. But as soon as you have a couple of people unavailable, whether it's injuries, it could be COVID, it could be international call-ups, anything like that, then suddenly when those backups that come in aren't even close to the level that they've got in the first team. So I think that could be where they struggle this year.
I'll go next if you don't mind. I think that their middle order batting this year should be somewhat solved because they're moving Kohli out of that position. I think he's a better option as an opener. I don't really like the way he plays in the middle order. I think he'll be a good opener. I also think that him not being there and being replaced by Glenn Maxwell is a big upgrade, assuming Glenn Maxwell turns up. And not this other guy that's been impersonating Glenn Maxwell in India for the last decade and a bit, or
Maxwell Glenn.
So I think their middle order, batting wise, not such a weakness. They might have a little bit of a problem at the death, I think. I don't know if they end up using sort of Washington Sundar in that role. That's not great, I don't think. I was on a different podcast yesterday, and everyone was telling me that Mohammad Azharuddin is the business. So if he turns out to be the business, then possibly he solves that death hitting position. I think he'll wicket keep for them as well. And then bowling wise, I mean, death bowling is the problem, isn't it? Like it is where they are weakness, and I think. And Dan, maybe you can sort of come in on this, but I think they might have the personnel to offset that slightly in the other two phases. So I'm thinking the power play and the middle overs portion of the bowling innings. I think their bowling matches up pretty well versus some of the other IPL teams, and I think they might be able to save runs in, say, the first 15 overs of a match, albeit they'll hand a bunch of them back when, like, Siraj is bowling the 19th over or something. But if they can, when I look at T20, I think if you can be good in two of the three bowling phases, then you'll probably be a decent T20 team. Dan, that could be mental, Dan. You're an analyst. What do you reckon?
I'm really key on the death bowling clarity. In an ideal world, you have two players who bowl 17 and 19 and 18 and 20. And I just don't see it with RCB at all. Their death bowling is an absolute mess, in my opinion. And the other problem is that obviously if Kohli bats at the top of the order, then life's good probably. But if he bats in the middle overs, we've seen what happens. He has a really bad boundary percentage. He lacks boundary intent, and it's very, very difficult to post above par scores with that approach. And the problem is with that mediocre death bowling, you're going to need to post above par scores, and that's kind of the crux of the problem. I think, Jack, also you mentioned about Washington Sundar batting at like 7 probably for RCB, and that's a finisher role that he's probably not suited at, and hopefully I've got penciled in Azharuddin at 6 probably as a finisher for them, so hopefully he can take the heat off Sundar there as well.
Shall we bounce back to finish off the predictions?
Well,
We've got a couple more super chats in, but if we wrap up the predictions, we'll go back to them. We'll do the Twitter. We'll go back to the chat.
Good. Sounds good.
Yeah, just saying a SpongeBob character has called me sexy. So I mean, things I didn't expect to happen on a Thursday on live YouTube. So,
was it Patrick?
Yeah, it was Patrick. I think it's a similar complexion to what I have. So thank you very much.
Right, yes. Well, after that brief interlude, thank you, Ross. Back to the predictions. So we've tried to stir up a little bit of debate over who might win. It was a difficult thing to do in a one-horse race, but we've managed to get there. So now we'll move on to something that's probably got a bit more about it in terms of options and debate, which is the destination of the much-desired coloured caps. So last year, KL Rahul took the orange cap with 670 runs, and Kahisa Rabada took home the purple cap with 30 wickets, which was 3 clear of the next best challenger. So very simple questions to you guys: who will be taking those caps, that headwear this year? And I'll start with you, Jack, since as you went last time.
Right, so let's start with the wicket taker. I think Rashid Khan would be my pick for. Is it purple, orange? You know that one.
Purple.
Okay.
Yeah.
I always get
maybe we
confused
won't have as
between
much
the two.
debate as I thought then on this one.
My reasoning for that though is that I think that will happen if Bhuvneshwar Kumar plays the whole IPL. So I think that him opening the bowling and him bowling death overs puts the squeeze on teams in the middle overs, so they can't do what they did against SRH last year, which was basically block out the stint from Rashid Khan and hope for the best. Bhuvi means that, or Bhuvi in form, as we saw him against England anyway, he means that you have to score runs against some other bowlers as well, and it's that kind of that tiered approach, or that tier of good bowling creates pressure and probably the opportunities for Rashid Khan to take wickets. If not, then I think Rabada over the tournament's probably a good shout to I've forgotten the cap colour again. Sorry.
Purple.
Wickets.
Wickets cap, yeah. Why don't we dispense with colours? I thought I was the one who was a bit colourblind. Okay, well, Jack, you've pinned your colours with. Well, I'll leave colours out of it with you, but you've gone for Rashid Khan. Ross, I believe you are in the same camp as Rashid Khan.
I'm pretty sure Jack has just gone into my Google Notes and gone, right, I'm going to take exactly what he was talking about. As honestly, word for word, talking about Bhuvi and actually not being able to look at treat Sunrisers Hyderabad in the same way. Exactly that bit. I think if Mumbai Indians are going to stand a chance of really performing in Chennai, then their spinners have to step up here. And I was quite impressed with Chahar, and I think that there's an opportunity for him to actually make a real mark, and instead of just being that kind of, not a bit player, that's probably a bit too harsh, but really be in that position where he goes, I am the frontline spinner for these guys. I don't think Chawla, well, I'm definitely going to get it wrong of how I say that, but Donut Boy, as I prefer to call him, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to bring home kind of the wickets that they're looking for in that. Over the tournament, you have always got to look at how many wickets, obviously, that they're going to take in the group stage, and don't really concern yourself with the last few games, I don't think, sometimes. So I'm going to still have to stick with Rashid Khan as well with Jack. So
Right.
so boring. I need to go for someone else.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've also plumped for Rashid Khan. I did also write down the point about Bhuvi being back to provide a bit more depth. But there was another thing that I'd sort of picked up on with Rashid Khan, which has come thanks to Dan Weston, who's provided us with some lovely charts about IPLs and grounds and things. They're very interesting. And what I noticed was that so Sunrisers Hyderabad have got 5 games at Chennai and they've got also games at Delhi and Kolkata. And there was a chart which suggested that those are the three grounds that with spin have the lowest balls per wicket. And that sort of is something that's really going to play to Rashid Khan's strengths, obviously, being a spinner and being apparently the best spinner in the world. So that was my 2 pence on why Rashid Khan would also be in the running for that one. Dan, please tell me that you've got someone else.
Kind of, but then you've kind of talked me into Rashid Khan about playing 5 matches for Chennai.
Yeah.
It's Shabazz Nadeem, isn't it? Your left hand.
Yeah. I mean, he's probably going to take about 15 wickets in those 5 matches in Chennai alone, basically. I think spinner-wise, he's got it locked up. I'm going to go for a different name in paces. I think Jack mentioned Rabada, but he's probably going to miss the first 1 or 2 matches of the comp. So I'm going to go for Bumrah just because he's pretty much guaranteed to play like minimum 16 games.
Yeah, numbers game. We'll go for
absolutely.
Yeah, we'll go for probabilities. Great. So we'll snake back round then. Dan, orange cap. That's the batting for you, Jack.
Okay, so we've taken a lot of flack in the comment chat over the last month or so about Virat Kohli. I'm going to get hopefully a lot of love by saying that I think if Kohli opens, he will get the orange cap because he's going to bat through so many innings.
Dan's been reading my notes now.
How'd you kick Dan off the podcast or the live stream?
Put him in the waiting room to cool off.
He'll play like so many 70 or 50 type innings that will just accumulate to a mammoth amount of runs if he opens the batting. So I'll go with Kohli.
Yeah, well, of course, KL Rahul last year topped the run charts reasonably comfortably, but he didn't do it at the quickest rate. Certainly not quicker than those in the few places below him. And yeah, I will just zoom past me because Dan said what I was going to say. So Ross, over to you.
Yeah, I think Virat is a good shout, Dan, and pains to agree with you on that one. But I think, Max, you mentioned KL Rahul there, and actually I think the way in which Kings Punjab Kings, Kings 11 Punjab, whatever the branding
King
is,
Legends,
I think that they are in a position again to replicate that. And I think there is a piece for KL Rahul where he does need to go up that next level of gears, but he's proven that he can hit the runs, and he's proven he can be in that position. What I do think is that this is a real chance for someone who's playing their games at Mumbai to actually get off to an absolute flyer. And the fact that Shikhar Dhawan will be opening up every single game for Delhi Capitals, and did he hit? Is it 2 centuries he hit last year? He definitely hit 1, but he got close enough to 2
back to back.
And I just think. Yeah, so someone in that vein, in that team, I think Delhi could do really well there. And so I reckon Shikhar Dhawan or KL Rahul for me.
All right, and Jack?
Well, so I've gone KL or Virat. I saw Rohit super chat about kicking KL Rahul out of the Punjab Kings team. I think that might be a bit harsh. I actually think he could be in line for a good season. He has to adapt his game a little bit, particularly after the power play ends. But I in the IPL, I think KL Rahul is money. There are a couple of other dark horses that I'd like to point out, really, from an England point of view. I think if Bairstow opens every single game for SRH, there is the possibility that he could, over the 14 matches, put together a pretty hot streak.
Not Jason Roy?
I don't think Jason Roy will be the one. I think that probably also applies to Butler. I mean, obviously the problem with Bairstow is that he's playing 5 matches in Chennai, and will they be as high scoring? Maybe not. But he is, again, as an opener, primed to be the guy who could score loads of runs for SRH. And I think the other factor to be involved there is that Warner, we expect to probably not play every single game, which means that there is more chance of Bairstow playing more matches. So if I was going to take if I had a fiver and someone said you can't go for one of the favourites, I'd be maybe tempted to put it on Bairstow. I liked Ross's argument about Shikhar Dhawan. He was on my list of potential winners as well. I think what this sort of highlights, though, overall, is that giving an award out for top run scorer is probably not the best way of deciding who the best batter across an IPL is, because I don't think any of these players that we're talking about will necessarily be the key man when it comes to winning matches for their side. Dan, I know you've talked about an alternative metric in this area. What do you want to just talk our listeners through how you would choose the best batter in an IPL?
Yeah, so I don't like the rule where you get the orange cap if you're get the most runs, because it just promotes a defensive mentality, which is not ideal for T20 cricket. There's a decent chance that a player scoring 500 odd runs at a strike rate of 120 is actually a liability rather than an asset. But yeah, that player might get the orange cap, which is just nuts in my view. I'm not a massive fan of what they call BASRA, which is batting average strike rate added for recruitment purposes, but it might actually be applicable here if you throw in like a minimum amount of balls faced as a criteria. So you could say like minimum 200 balls faced or something like that. The BASRA gets a green cap or something like that. But I also like the idea of a cap. So maybe we could have a few different caps. Maybe some players might actually wear multiple caps at the same time, which would be quite fun.
There's going to be a new range coming out soon.
Yeah.
By Altros, probably.
But
it's the perfect hat for a medium-sized hatch.
Isn't it the safest one as well?
Yeah, it's the gold standard of caps.
Thanks, Michael Slater.
So in honour of the Altros, we could have the gold cap for the highest boundary hitter in the tournament as well.
Yeah.
I'd like that. I think there should be. I mean, they have that in baseball, don't they? They have like the silver slugger and at various different positions.
Right. Do you want to do a quick fire round, Jack, of predictions before we move on to the questions? Just very quick answers. Who's coming last? Ross?
Yeah.
The worst thing, and in the chat, people have been putting Ben Stokes in as the winner of the orange cap because potentially he's going to open the batting. Josh Butler could well open the batting. They are going to have the tournament of their life if Rajasthan Royals aren't going to finish bottom. The fact that Jofra Archer is out, that is huge. Like Chris Morris is going to have to try and pick up that Jofra Archer mantle, and as the most expensive player in IPL history, he should be able to try and step into those shoes, but that's not how it works, right? I think if they would have had Archer and Morris, then CSK would probably come last because they're all a bunch of old duffers. But at the moment, I think the CSK are going to be better than Rajasthan Royals, and the Royals will finish last, regardless of the heroics that go from them.
Cool. I mean, when I said quick answers, what I had in my head was just the name of a team, but thank you. That was
the Royals.
Jack.
I think the Rajasthan Royals, because of everything Ross said. On Jofra Archer as well, all of the good sources in the UK are suggesting he won't be at the IPL at all. So
it would seem
they're in trouble.
Yeah. Dan?
If Archer's out, Rajasthan, because basically it's impossible to chase 220 in every single match. If he does play, say, like 10 matches, then CSK, no doubt. I mean, I just don't see where their runs are going to come from, and they've got just the oldest team that I think I've ever seen in a franchise competition. And so, yeah, big problem.
And I'm just going to go CSK anyway because they're not playing at home and the aforementioned reasons of average age. Great. So predictions done. Do we have some more questions for us?
Yeah, we do. And Max, there's always bits where you love the rules. When it comes to everything, you love the rules. What is your opinion on the timing of T20? Because Ashwin K, what's your take on 90 minutes for 20 overs? And if not, in 2 consecutive matches, the captain we banned for a game. So when we're watching some of the ODIs and watching some of the T20s, they took forever. Morgan and Kohli, both big brain cricketers trying to figure out the best thing to do. Kohli running off and asking Rohit Sharma what to do took a bit of time. But there is the bit where, Max, what do you think should be happening there for a slow over rate?
I think I'm supportive of something to being put in to make sure games move on, because as you said, those sort of last few overs were quite they did drag, and we do have the strategic timeouts which do allow for a bit of tactical thought. So thinking about when you use them, maybe having that those rules enforced makes you think a bit more about when you would use them. 90 minutes seems quite quick, though. I think that is quite quick, and I think it seems like a bit of a heavy-handed punishment to ban someone. I mean, what they've got in the blast is sort of like a cut-off time, and if you miss the cut-off time, then you get, for every over you are out by, they add runs to the opposing total, and I think I prefer that because there's an actual like instant punishment for that, whereas with you're benefiting another team if you take the captain out in a future game. Which I don't think is necessarily the right way to go about it. The one problem I do have with these sort of time things, it's very difficult to see where the consistency comes in of how they're actually applied. I've seen occasions where, I mean, I'm just going to go on a rant about Peter Trago now, but there was
I was going to say, never give Max a rules question. It's the end of the podcast.
There was a Surrey game where they missed the cut-off time pretty much because Peter Trago was just being a dick in the middle of the pitch and like taking ages in between overs, and the umpires weren't adding time on. So you do have to be hot on that and make sure that you're aware that there can be some hijinks in the other team. But I hope that's some sort of answer.
If Kohli or Dhoni are eligible for a ban because of this slow over rate, does the match referee go, sorry, my watch wasn't working that day?
That's the thing, right? I am against banning players when it comes to that kind of stuff. I think we saw that Rabada was banned for kind of an aggressive outburst. You miss out on the best players playing against the other best players. So I always think that is the wrong decision. Jack, let's go to a more one. It's about King legend Rahul from Rohit Singhania. Don't you think Punjab Kings would be a much better team if we throw the legend out? We don't need foundation players in T20 these days. Couldn't we replace it with David Malan?
Well, it's a similar question to the one that Gerling's just asked, and thank you, Gerling. That's £5, boys. That's a lot of money. Thank you very much for that. He basically said, "Are we being a bit too harsh on KL Rahul because last year he batted in a different way because Maxwell kept failing?" I think no. I think if you get through the power play, then as an opener, you're sort of responsible for keeping that fast start going. There were so many times last year when Kings 11, as the artist formerly known as Kings 11, would be sort of 60 for none after the power play, and then only be on 90 sort of after 11 overs. And you're sort of like, why have you slowed down so much over the next 5? So I think he's got to be a little bit more progressive. I don't hate KL Rahul as much as you do or as much as Rohit does. I think there is sort of a role for him. He just has to play a little bit differently in those middle overs because he costs his team. But he costs his team the ability to capitalise on all of the good work he's done until that point. He completely sabotages his own quite impressive. The thing he does that's quite impressive.
Did he just tread on his own stumps then after 6 overs?
Yeah. We had another super chat. I think Ross's internet might be a little bit dodgy. He's just drinking a glass of water there. Dan, it was directed at you. Which 3 Mumbai Indians players would you retain for next year? I didn't catch the names, sorry. It's just disappeared from my screen. So
that's a question and a half. I think that you have to retain Bumrah, no doubt about that. Best pace bowler in the comp, which is a scarce resource. You also have to pick another scarce resource player, Hardik Pandya. There's just no one in the domestic market who can hit like Hardik Pandya. Then it's kind of more questionable from there in terms of who you go for. I wouldn't go for Rohit because he's the oldest player in their group right now and he's cost a lot of money as well. So he may be someone that you either look to buy back at auction or you let someone else take the hit in terms of the eventual decline that he's likely to exhibit. So maybe Kishan would be a fun choice for the third.
I like that. I think. I mean, if Ishan Kishan's good again next year, then he, he's nailed on, isn't he, to be retained. Should we head over to some of the Twitter questions that we had before the live stream started? Because I know we've curated these slightly because I know that some people did some research on some certain stuff. So Harshit has asked, and Ross, I'll direct this at you. Can the likes of Quinton de Kock, Ishan Kishan, who like pace on the ball, adapt to slowish surfaces of Chennai and Delhi?
So I think it's that they are elite level players, right? And regardless of where you're playing, you are going to be expected to hit these runs. And I think playing in India, they have done before, playing in the UAE, it's not completely dramatic, the level in change. Quinton de Kock has also got a century playing against Ashwin and Jadeja when he played for South Africa, but he's also been out a hell of a lot too spin bowling in India. So there is going to be questions there where he's going to have to prove himself kind of yet again, even though he is an elite level South African. I think the likes of Ishan Kishan and Sky have proven themselves regardless of the conditions and regardless of kind of the bowlers they're coming up against. And the same goes for Rohit Sharma. I think Mumbai will be absolutely fine because of their approach that they've taken and the approach that they have to batting anyway. We might not see kind of blistering scores of kind of 240 at Chennai, but actually they will probably push the limits. And with the stats that Dan, you sent through earlier, I think they're a little bit warped because of how good CSK were. And I think actually Mumbai are now that team who are really, really strong. And you'll see actually a correction in those, and you'll see Mumbai do really well and adapt.
Dan, I've got a question for you, sort of following up on that, and maybe you want to talk about why people talk about Chennai's stadium, so the Chepauk, so regularly when it comes to conditions. So considering this comes from Vicky on Twitter again. So considering that Chennai Super Kings are not playing in Chennai, do you think that the curators are going to make a spin-friendly track or not? So Dan, it's hard to speculate on that, but maybe you can, and maybe you can also explain how much of an impact the conditions that, let's face it, MS Dhoni is asking for at the Chepauk Stadium, how much of an impact they have had on Chennai's results historically in the IPL.
Yeah, okay, so it's huge. Obviously, they didn't play a lot of home games in 2018 after they got readmitted because there was, I can't remember the reason why, but they had to switch their matches, I think, to Pune after one match at home in 2018. But 2019, they played a full season at home. Now, across those 2 years, they won a lot of tosses, which helped them really dictate the conditions, get the best of the conditions at the Chepauk. Now, what I noticed was when I was delving through all their previous matches in my book, for my book, was that spin has an economy rate of about 3 runs and over better than pace at Chepauk. And CSK consistently, pretty much every single match, bowled more spin than the opposition teams. So not only there was a clear bias, but they exploited that bias massively as well. And a lot of people will say, well, how were the opposition teams going to know that it was going to be a spinner's paradise at Chepauk? Well, actually, if you look at really old historical data, including like matches in the IPL in the past and other tournaments, internationals and stuff, it was always the same dynamic. So whether Dhoni's asked for it or not, it's always been that same dynamic. And I think my default strategy, if I was running an IPL team who was going to play, like, say, 5 matches at Chepauk, would be that I would pick a minimum of 3 realistic spin options to look to bowl a minimum of 12 spin overs in that particular match. You don't necessarily have to pick 3 specialist spinners. You could pick 2 specialist spinners and maybe batter out of the top 6 who's a competent spinner for matchups as well. That would be absolutely fine. If you've got 3 or 4 spin options in your batting, your overall group, maybe 2 frontline and 1 or 2 in your batting group, then that's the perfect blend, I think, for playing at Chennai.
We've got one question over on our super chat. Ross, I'm not 100% sure how good your internet is, so I'm just going to read it out if you don't mind.
I also saw that Dan has been bet about Rohit Sharma.
Right. So anyway, it's from Patrick again, who's just buying you a drink, Ross. Little does Patrick know that I'm going to siphon off all that money and embezzle it when I, as the main account holder for this. Can we get a star player from each of us that we'll root for? No analysis, just one word or just the name of the player. Max, you haven't spoken for a little while. Who's the star player that you're going to root for?
I can't look past Ishan Kishan. I think he's brilliant. I want to see him get better and better and better.
Ross?
Max, can you get a mullet and get an earring? Actually, I think that would actually fit.
I think I'm pretty much there with a mullet after the last lockdown. To be fair,
I love Rabada. Rabada is always the one that I want to do well.
Dan?
I'm going to go a bit more left field, and I'm going to look for Finn Allen because I love an intent machine, and he's certainly that.
Yeah, nothing like showing the intent, bringing on the oranges to the other players who are playing.
Nicholas Puran, I think, is the guy I'm most. He's not necessarily anyone under the radar, is he? But I'm excited to see him. A couple more from Twitter, and this is kind of. Well, I'm just going to ask Dan this one, I think, as you're the one who's done the most research. Is there an emerging player this season? This is from Rishi, who you think, I guess, will light up the tournament?
Yeah, definitely. I like Abdul Samad at Sunrisers. He kind of played a few games last season, didn't always get a lot of balls to face in the sort of lower order hitter role. The SRH have got the worst hitting numbers for most of the years over the last 4 or 5 years. They need lower order hitters, so he'll probably play. He actually strikes at 113 in first class cricket, which is incredible. 128 strike rate and 50 over cricket. So he's clearly that intent machine in all formats. Maybe there could be some circumstances where he's pushed up the order a little bit if circumstances dictate as well, and they need some quick runs. But I can't wait to see how his career develops. You don't see players with his numbers at his age, so can't wait to see how he gets on this year.
That's a good answer. We've actually picked up, as we often do with Twitter questions, we've actually gone over a lot of the points. Lots of people asking about whether the orange cap was a good measure of whether a player's a good batter or not. People asking for our general predictions and so on. As the next one, and Max, I'll throw this one over to you. What are the areas? This comes from Matt. What are the areas teams can target against Mumbai? So we all agreed at the beginning that Mumbai are the team to go for, the team to beat this year. How'd you take them down?
So I think we might have spoken about this before, but I think there are a couple of places that you probably can get about them. I would say the second spin option is a target that you can go for. So Krunal Pandya is a very, very clever bowler, but I think you can get after him, and I think there are runs to be had there. And then there's the well, I guess we could call it the fourth overseas slot, which we think will probably be Nathan Coulter-Nile, but it could end up being someone like Adam Milne, because as you say, Ross, Nathan Coulter-Nile isn't as hot as some of the other options, so you can get after them there. So I think you just have to pick your battles, really. You have to be really clever about how you play them and pick the right matchups to score. I mean, often you talk about matchups about how you're going to get people out. I think really against Mumbai Indians, you want to look at matchups where you're going to score most of your runs. Last year, I'd also have said go after Karan Pollard, but how much he'll bowl, I don't know. Now that Hardik is back and seemingly able to put in the overs. But yeah, I think they're the two key areas. It's not ideal, really, is it? Trying to put together a decent score when you've got 8 overs that you want to work with. But I would say if you can get on them, and because that puts pressure on the other bowlers as well. And I'll make the same joke that I've made before. Just get them to a super over and hope they bowl Trent Bolt.
Last one from Twitter, and then I think Ross, you said you were going to host the super chat or the chat, regular chat. We'll take non-money questions as well. Portion of the live stream. This one is from @MorganIsAFraud. So that'll probably appeal to you, Dan.
That's his account.
Does Stokes and Butler opening makes sense for Rajasthan Royals team balance? They've got a few young openers like Jaiswal, Anuj Rawat, and even Manan Vora, who is a bit more experienced. Ross, you can answer that. Stokes and Butler opening the batting for Rajasthan, is that their best combo? Do you like it? What would you change?
So I think Stokes has been a notoriously slow starter, and he's obviously a quality player. But whether he's an elite T20 player, not entirely convinced by that. I think him opening up with Jos Butler is probably their best way to go from my point of view. I think Jos Butler is one of those people who should face as many deliveries as he possibly can do, because he's just got that ability to find the boundary, and having those two opening up in the power play could set them up for success. So many times I think they just leave something a little bit lacking. Batting Jos Butler at 6 or at 5 to accommodate Steve Smith last year was an aberration, and that should not have happened at all. So it's going to be really exciting to see them back together. But as I said when we were talking about who would finish last, if those guys don't have the tournaments of their lives and kind of sitting there as orange cap holder and slightly lesser grade of orange cap holder, then I think that's going to be a real issue for them.
I'd add one thing to that. I think you're right from Rajasthan Royals' point of view. I think from an England point of view, though, they'd probably quite like Stokes to bat 6 at this IPL, just to get a bit of experience in the role he'll probably still have to fulfil for England. I mean, I don't think there's a number of runs that Stokes could score this season that would convince England to move away from some combination of Bairstow, Roy and Butler opening the batting. And I think there's a lot for Stokes to learn in his international role as that kind of hitter. And as you sort of said, Ross, his numbers there in that for that portion of his game aren't that great. So I'd if I were going to play God, I think it would be nice to see Jaiswal open the batting because he did some good things at the Under-19s World Cup about a year ago, and it would be good to see Stokes down the order to give him a bit more experience. That pretty much wraps up Twitter. I will say we had a lot of questions in from Vinay, and I've not read any of them out because we did answer them at other points, but I've said his name, so hopefully that balances out. Ross, let's go back over to the stream of chat. Are there any good questions that you've picked up on, or any themes? What's the feedback been like so far?
So far, everyone loves Max. So, that's what happens all the time. So that's absolutely fine. Gautam has asked: is Ravi Bishnoi going to be the next spin superstar of the IPL? Jack.
I really like Ravi Bishnoi. I think I've said that a few times on this podcast. I think I actually went as far on the Delhi Capitals preview. I went as far as saying I would rather have Ravi Bishnoi in my team than Ravi Ashwin. Now, I don't know 100% if I agree with Jack from a week ago, but I do think he's probably an above-average spinner. And I think he's another one of those players from a Punjab Kings point of view, maybe flown a bit under the radar so far, looked decent last year. If he improves a little bit and he's young, so you would think he will progress, then he's part of a good unit on that team. So I like him a lot.
Brilliant. Dan, from Harsha Singh, who is the best overseas player for the Delhi Capitals? And
that's the good question, and it's a tricky question as well. I think it's so difficult because they've got, you would say, Rabada and Norkia will be the staple 2 picks out of the bowling group. Obviously, they missed the first couple of games, or at least one game, because they didn't pay for a private jet, unlike MI, I think, did for their player.
It's because they could land on top of the Barney house in the middle of it. That's why it costs £1 billion. It's actually got a runway across the top of it.
So I think Mumbai paid for a private jet to get De Kock over, so he doesn't have to do quarantine because he goes from bubble to bubble. But unfortunately, Rabada and Nokia have to slum it and do a week in quarantine. Them 2 will be the standard picks. I actually went Billings and Stoinis. I'm not a great lover of Het Meyer because just think he flatters to deceive. He's overpriced, and I would go down the Billings and Stoinis route instead. And I'm certainly not a big fan of Steve Smith or Tom Curran either. So it looks like those 4 by default, really.
Brilliant. Well, I'm just going to say thanks to Prashant Reddy and Anuj Anjay for your contributions. Very, very well received. Max, Marcelinho De Kock, do you think David Miller is going to play for Rajasthan Royals?
I actually think he could, because with Archer out of the side,
he's a pretty good bowler. Forgot.
Yeah,
sorry.
No, I think that sort of means that you could bring in one of the young Indians pacers that they've got. So, I mean, I'm thinking maybe Akash Singh or Chetan Sakaria, who they picked up at the auction, could come in. I mean, you might as well take a punt because it's with Archer being out, it's kind of a shot to nothing, and that gives you the opportunity to maybe bolster the batting a little bit. But I would probably choose Liam Livingston over David Miller if I were going to go down that route.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Max. I can't even say that. Prithvi Das. I'm so sorry. Shakib Morgan, Dinesh Russell. How does that middle order look? Jack, what
I think that's one for you, Ross. You're the big Shakib lover. Talk us through your thought process for KKR, and then if there's anything I want to add, I do have thoughts on KKR, but I think you're the one who's spoken most vociferously on that subject.
Yeah, I think Shakib is an absolutely brilliant player. I think his left arm bowling is a huge asset to KKR, especially where they're going to be playing their games in this tournament. I think in terms of him being a power hitter, Dan, I mean, he's just not a power hitter, is he? He doesn't do that kind of thing. But when you're surrounded by Dre Russ and Owen Morgan, actually maybe that doesn't matter quite so much. Owen Morgan was rubbish during the white ball series against India recently. Dre Russ was injured and rubbish in the last year's IPL. So it's just massive questions over KKR. If they all hit form, then it's quite a deadly combination. And it'd be great to see Dinesh Karthik walk out into one of his commentary shirts, kind of just batting in that, because they were loved more than I've seen anything else loved on Twitter recently. I think for KKR, again, it's if they start to fire, like they were all pretty poor last year. And I've got massive questions about even if they're going to make the playoffs, actually.
If I were running KKR, I would. My preference would probably be to play the two overseas quick bowlers and not have Shakib or Narayan at all. It would be Morgan, Russell, Ferguson and Cummins. Not at every ground, maybe. I mean, there's lots of caveats about that. You probably don't want to be doing that at the Chepauk for all the reasons Dan gave about 10 minutes ago. But I think, and we don't really like using best 11 too much on this podcast because your best 11 should be flexible because cricket is a conditions-based sport.
Yep.
But I think when possible, I thought they were at their best basically when Ferguson and Cummins played together last year.
Well, that's exactly what I wanted there, Jackson. Lovely. Suarez Chavan has asked, will this be Virat's last season as captain if RCB don't qualify? Dan, over to you.
The poison chalice.
Appreciate that nomination there. No, it won't be Virat's last season as captain because I think that Virat will probably be the one who chooses when he exits the captain's role. I don't see him being overthrown by anyone at the franchise right now.
Yeah, I could never see that actually happening. It's like Dhoni, isn't it? Like Dhoni will only give up the gloves. Like it probably won't even be Dhoni's last tournament. He'll play till he's about 70 and still be sitting there with his 120 strike rate from last season. Anyway, Garam has asked about Dave Warner and Kane Williamson. Max, you're the big Sunrisers Hyderabad fan. What do you think?
Until we do the live draw.
What do you think their overseas contingent is going to look like on a game to game basis? More than likely.
Well, I think that will depend a lot on where they're playing. So Dan mentioned earlier, trying to make sure you've got 12 overs of spin, basically, if you're playing at Chennai. Assuming Chennai does what we expect it to. We don't know that for sure because Chennai aren't at home, but there's no reason, I think, to believe that it will be that vastly different from what we've seen. So I could see Mohamed Nabi coming in, or maybe even Majib if they're feeling a bit funny for some of those games. But ultimately, I think we'll start with... maybe not start, but I think the baseline would be having Bairstow, Warner and Williamson in there, even though I would suggest that maybe Warner might be on his way out, and then have Rashid Khan. But I do think there'll be a bit of moving around, and you will see a few cases where someone will be unlucky to miss out, and it might be Johnny Bairstow because Cabe Williamson could throw down a few overs of bombing off spin and bring in Mohamed Nabi or someone else.
I love that, but I still reckon Johnny Bairstow would back himself to bowl some offies as well. So
100%,
always the option if Ridderman Sahar's behind the stumps. Swadin, thank you ever so much for your super chat, much appreciated. Vinay, you're gonna get a question in here, mate. Well done, Vinay. That is persistence personified right there. Is Shubman Gill in the same mould as King Legend and will end up slowing them down? Dan?
I think on the evidence so far, that's definitely the case. I'm not convinced about Shubman Gill's upside as a T20 batter right now. I'm not saying he can't do it in the future, but we're dealing with the here and now, and I think that's another question mark for the KKR think tank.
Oh, someone can't see the bat handle behind me, so I forgot to go this way. So there we go. Yep. There's the cricket bat. There's just you and the umbrella because it rains too much here in England.
Often use them both together.
So on the Shubman Gill front, it was quite interesting him coming out to the media ahead of the IPL and saying that strike rate is overrated. Jack, if you're a player like that, are you ever opening your mouth and saying something like that for ahead of the IPL, or do you just not think that it's ever going to matter? He's a domestic, international Indian player. He's always going to get a gig.
I mean, I guess you can say it. And like you say, he will get. I mean, KL Rahul's good, and Shubman Gill, they are good players. Well, I don't know if they're maybe not good, but they're probably not below average. And not below average local talent in franchise leagues is they'll always get gigs. When KL Rahul said strike rate is overrated, I don't know whether he, made a mistake when he said that, or if he just fundamentally doesn't understand how T20 cricket works. I'm hoping that the King legend just, he was frustrated with people talking about it, and so he came up with some bullshit answer. And that's where it came from. It would be really worrying from the point of view of someone who thinks Punjab Kings might do quite well this year, if their captain has actually sat down, thought about this, and then gone to the media and said strike rate is overrated.
I'm looking forward to KL Rahul batting the whole innings, carrying his bat and coming off with that was a pretty good 101, wasn't it, guys? Yeah, brilliant. We've posted 140. Thanks very much. So in terms of who's actually going to support the teams, Jack, we've got a few minutes remaining. I think we're going to stop at 6. How are we going to pick who we're going to be following this year?
We have this hat. So a few people have asked in the questions box which teams we support, and the answer is we don't really support it. We support cricket at the Cricket Podcast, but for this season we are going to pick some actual teams to support. The deal is, if you draw I've got the list. I think Are they the right way round? Because I was worried that it would mirror. Yeah. So I've got a list of teams, all 8 teams. The deal is that you have to support them for the duration of the IPL. You can abandon them in June or whenever. And obviously there are 2 new teams next year, and we want to give ourselves a chance to support a new franchise. Mm-hmm. So you have to support the team for the duration of the IPL. You also have to buy a piece of team kit and wear it on future IPL podcasts. Out of your own money, not from the lovely people donating super chats. So it can be you can go all out, buy the shirt, or you can get a baseball cap, whatever. Dan, you're not obliged to be involved in this, but if you want to be,
well, let's do it for comedy value. I know I'm going to get CSK.
Right, Ross, I have to draw this myself. So the hat is slightly off screen, but it's all above board. All the teams are in there. Would you like?
Oh, I don't know.
Have you got a colour one for CSK?
No, I've not tipped them at all.
Okay.
Would you like to be first, Ross?
I'll go first. Yeah, why not?
Okay.
So the Indian Premier League roulette that we are playing.
In my hand, I have your team.
Ooh. No.
First one out. Love it.
It's Rajasthan Royals, Ross. You have to support the team we all agree will finish last. But the team that a lot of dumb England fans follow for no reason.
It's the mold, doesn't it?
Yeah, this is going to hinder. This is going to hinder. Every time I now talk about Rajasthan, people are just going to think I'm a jumped up English fan, when that's not the case. So that's. Yes, Anuj Chanda, you've got your wish. Rajasthan Royals. I bleed pink.
Max, are you ready for your team?
I'm so ready. Yeah.
So the team is. I hope this is the right way up.
Chennai Super Kings.
Oh dear.
Are you just first thoughts, boys? You're gonna go for the hat, the scarf, the t-shirt, trousers.
I'm gonna get a tattoo just above the breastplate here.
I'll see what I can. Maybe the biggest lion head I can find.
Dad, are you ready?
Let's do it.
Oh wait. Can we just ask? Out of the 6 remaining teams, who's the one you most want to pick, Dan and Jack?
Oh, who I want to pick?
Yeah,
I mean, you're kind of free for anyone now, aren't you?
Mumbai,
Is it not?
You want a Mumbai? See, I actually wouldn't want Mumbai, so because I'm not a glory hunter. But it's great to know our analyst is.
What football team do you support?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's the same as Ross's.
And Jack, out of those teams,
Punjab are the team that I've felt most close to when they were the comeback Kings 11 in the second half of last year's IPL. I actually was upset when they lost and they didn't make it.
Varun said he feels this is rigged, and I would agree.
I swear to God, Watch back. I've only been looking at the screen. So I'd like Punjab. Who would I least like? That's probably the better question. I think Mumbai. I don't want to be. I'm not really a big fan of favourites. I support teams by rooting against, or I support sport by rooting against teams. And yeah. So anyway, Dan, are you ready? Here's your team.
I think I'm going to get KKR now.
You have.
RCB.
Galore.
Okay. Let's do it.
can work with that.
Cody's going. Yeah, I'm all right.
And then here, look, just to prove this isn't rigged, I've got. You can see them all here.
Now all the duff ones are out.
Yeah.
I'm just going to throw them all away. This is the last one.
Oh
no!
Oh jeez. Oh.
Honestly, I think you're going to get banned from the podcast like CSK and Rajasthan Royals are banned from the IPL. Anyway. There we go. So Max ends up with Chennai Super Kings. I end up with Rajasthan Royals. Jack with the mighty Mumbai Indians, and Dan with Virat Kohli's RCB. I mean, what a selection! What a selection!
Yeah. I think that was good. I'm looking forward to purchasing my Mumbai Indians kit. It's one of my least favourite kits, I think. But yeah, I'll have it next episode. I'm a little bit deflated by that. I did want one of the outsiders. If I'm honest.
I'm looking forward to throwing all my weight behind CSK. It's going to take a bit of cognitive dissonance to try and work out reasons why I think they can do it, but I'm going to give it a go.
Cool. Max, that's all you can possibly do. And as a wicket keeper, maybe you can go for the old camouflage gloves in homage.
I was thinking just get a nice bright yellow hat to wear behind the stumps for this season, but yeah.
Ross, do you want to give a few messages to our listeners about where they can find us on social media and what they should do in the build up to the IPL? Because we're not exactly sure about our show schedule. We should probably decided that, considering the first match is tomorrow. But we will have content. Ross.
Well, you should listen to every single show that we ever do, because that's what we love to do. You should like and subscribe on YouTube and whichever podcast platform you listen to us on, as well as thank you ever so much for all of the chats and all of the super chats and all of the stuff that happens on Instagram as well as Twitter. We absolutely love it, and we wouldn't be doing this kind of show week in, week out without you guys. So thank you ever so much. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you for the next show. Great.
There's loads of people in the chat saying that was rigged, and I swear to God it wasn't. It couldn't have got any better if well, I mean, like, I could have got Punjab Kings, and that's what I'd have done. I really didn't want Chennai Super Kings or Rajasthan Royals, so I'm glad you two got them. Yeah. Anyway. Great, we'll be back. I think we want to do something tomorrow, and if this live stream's been received well, and see we were up to 500 people watching, which is pretty good, lads. So pat ourselves on the back for that. I want to come back tomorrow. We'll see how it fits with people with work and so on. But we'll have a load of IPL content.
It's a Friday, so that helps.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Dan,
two teams has been the thing, but sorry,
I've just thrown everything on the floor now.
We couldn't possibly do two teams. I'm a true Rajasthan Royals fan, and if you pick a team, I hope you back that franchise to the death like I will. Go Rajasthan.
Right. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. We will be back pretty soon.
Thanks for listening, everybody.